So hello and welcome to the New Gig podcast. I'm your host, Glen Hodgson, and today I'm delighted to be joined by the CMO of Cool Company, Mr. Rickard Svensson. How are you doing, Rickard?
I'm very good this morning. How are you?
I'm doing well too. So let's begin by just hearing a little bit about yourself, your background, but also Cool Company. What are you doing and what are the plans for this year?
So short about me, I'm the CMO, as you mentioned, for Cool Company, working as that since 2019, so close to 3 years now. I have my background in alcohol for quite a few years, working as a marketing director for several beer brands, but also for several liquor and alcohol other brands in Europe. Before that, I was working on the agency side as a digital planner and digital strategist. So when Michael, our CEO, asked me to join the company, it was quite clear to me that this was a golden opportunity, since I see that first of all, online is growing for obvious reasons, but our sector in particular, sort of what we call egenanställning or self-employment through platforms such as us, is a sort of a macro trend that is growing quite rapidly, not only in Sweden, but more importantly across the globe, having US and UK as sort of forerunners for this sort of project economy, where freelancers are becoming much more regular, but also prominent in terms of how to set up your business. Since everything becomes more and more digital, you're more and more reliant on yourself and less of where you work.
Excellent. So basically, that's a very good introduction to where we are. So tell us the importance of Cool Company. What role do you play and the services that you offer?
So put very simply, we are a PAYE umbrella service. So contractors or freelancers without a company can go through us in order to get invoicing through to their customers, while at the same time being sort of insured. So we have a very sort of strict policy in making sure that everyone is insured while they're on their assignment, but also that their end customer is insured during that time. So we sort of combine the freedom of being a freelancer or contractor with the security of being part of a company. So we have sick leave insurance, etc., as well as paid leave if you get hurt or injured while at your sort of a job for your customer. And we work across all sort of categories. We're now present in the Nordics and UK, and we work from everyone from a sort of IT developer to, basically your cleaner, your carpenter, etc. So there's a wide sort of broad scope and a lot of categories that sort of fall under the umbrella that we work with.
Yeah, so this is great. So it's not just one sector that's involved here. It's anyone who wants to have the freedom to be able to choose, but not have to have all the sort of the process, administration, and the headaches of running their own business, but also to know that there's a safety net there, that you're taking care of the boring things, if you want, that no one needs to think of. But it's great that they're there if something were to happen. So it sounds like a great service that's being offered to a broad range of individuals too. So this is kind of getting into the way in which sort of digitalization and increased flexibility is kind of changing the world of work, how people see jobs. And as you said yourself there, Rickard, more of a sort of a project basis as opposed to a 9 to 5 that you do for sort of 30, 40 years of your life before you take a pension.
No, and we can also see there's a big generational sort of gap in terms of how you view work. If older generations, as you said, work 9 to 5 and at the end of their sort of career, they got a gold watch. Nowadays, people, especially young people, they want to be entrepreneurs. A recent study showed that young adults in Sweden, the number one sort of aspirational work that they wanted to do was to have their own company. which is quite a difference from earlier generations where safety and having a secured employment was much more high ranked. Of course, there's just always uncertainty with being a freelancer, but since more and more people are going that way, they're also a sort of much more of a fluid workforce that is sort of able to tap into where it's needed on a project basis. So not only is it sort of a generational shift, but also, as you mentioned, the digitization has really sort of become an accelerator for this macro trend.
Absolutely, and I think that we've seen in recent years that the old feelings that stability in a 9-to-5 job, that's kind of being eroded as well. So it's kind of a false promise that this is something that's more stable and less fluid. It seems like the labor force more generally means there's more instability, but also that with those challenges comes the opportunities, as you're saying as well. And it seems that more and more people see the upside and want to have the flexibility, want to have the opportunity, and want to have a structure and a partner service that will allow them to do that in a safe and developed way.
Yes, and especially as you mentioned, like it's really free in freelancer that sort of attracts people, and especially now during the sort of the pandemic, more and more people have realized that they're able to actually work from home, but they can work from their country house, or they can work from pretty much wherever, as long as their work is digitalized. And that has also opened up a lot of new venues for people thinking about starting their own company. So that's why taking care of their invoicing, making sure everything works. I think and this is what was a Swedish survey, is that for a one-man company, they put about 44 hours per month in just administration. That is 1/4 of their sort of work month is put into administration. And obviously they need to focus on what they do best, and that is to sort of gain more customers or do the actual work. But admin is really not something that sort of add to their profit, and that's where we come in. It's really sort of a stepping stone to either try your own company or, to be honest, a side hustle. A lot of people might have a dream or a hobby that they want to pursue, but not necessarily on a full-time basis, and that's a simple solution to go through us then.
Absolutely. And I think this also challenges the traditional view of sort of selling time 9 to 5, 5 days a week to one employer. This idea of sort of several companies, organizations that maybe you're doing projects for, that can build up your sort of income, and you can sort of follow something maybe that's a little bit more stable, but also things that you're good at, but also your passion. But also if you think, well, I need a little bit of money coming up to the summer or Christmas or whatever it may be, I can actually sort of take on a few jobs to give me the money that I require, and then you can sort of maybe not touch it again for a few months. Whereas other people, maybe they do this as on a daily or a weekly basis. The options are there, it sounds like.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think this is Americans in general are quite entrepreneurial, and having a side hustle in the US is quite common. Even though you have your 9 to 5, you also have a side hustle. And I think that sort of mentality will also sort of get through here, is that even though you have your sort of 9 to 5, you can still pursue whether you want to be a personal trainer or paint or whatever it might be. You can always pursue that on your spare time, as a means, as you mentioned, to get more money in, or to just follow your passion, basically.
Excellent. So it's giving more opportunities, more opening the flexibility for individuals, but to allow them to test things as well. Sounds like a good opportunity. And it's kind of something also that I guess that companies and organizations need to actually update their thinking around this as well, Rickard.
No, absolutely. We have noticed, especially working with companies that need to work with people without sort of their own company. So working with freelancers and contractors, is that that they need to sort of, as you mentioned, do a shift in their mindset in terms of who are the people we are attracting? Because we won't be able, most likely, if you want to work with sort of a younger generation, to sort of lock them in. That's not the purpose. We need to become much more attractive. And that's where you can talk about employee branding, etc. I would say freelancer branding or contractor branding is just as important in terms of being a brand that they would like to be associated with, not only in sort of in terms of a lifestyle, but also in terms of how you actually interact with them, the daily conversations, the daily interactions, and we become sort of a very good middleman there to make sure that everything else runs smooth, so that they can focus on the relationship, and we take care of that sort of the formalia and the administration. Otherwise, could sort of put sort of a halt to the business.
Yeah, absolutely. So it seems like companies as well need to actually adapt and have this freelancer strategy, be using companies like Cool Company to be able to bring in that sort of freelancers into their workforce on a specific project basis when they need skills and expertise. And, you know, all studies seem to be showing that in the future, this percentage of the workforce will grow and grow for all companies, not just startups, SMEs, but also large organizations, and even the public sector as well seems to be an area that will go down this model in the near future.
Yeah, no, I think McKinsey did a quite interesting report back in 2018 where they predicted that, and I might get this wrong, but by 2025, there will be more self-employed than employed in the US. Right. And I think, given the pandemic and how things are moving, it probably might even be faster than that, to be honest. When we reach that point in the Nordics, I don't know. But given the current rate of things, I definitely see that more and more people will go that way.
Absolutely. And it seems to, speaking to freelancers as well, it seems to be that the people who sort of got used to this kind of model before the pandemic are the ones who have survived and done very well during these very uncertain times, because they've got this kind of mentality of picking up the projects, being able to work sort of remotely, be able to use digital channels, communications tools, but also work tools as well, to be able to operate in a kind of an open mesh system, as opposed to sort of, you know, everyone in the same office or the same department 5 days a week.
No, definitely. And there's talk about in the UK and the US about the big resignation. People really taking this opportunity to find new ways of working, but also living, because they find that the life puzzle of being able to work from where you want rather than being in the office 9 to 5 is actually also much more beneficial from a sort of personal point of view, in terms of trying to get, you know, the kids and the work and all that sort of things together in one, and with sort of, as you mentioned, as a more fluid and more meshed organization, you're able to get both. So, and that's basically our mission, Cool Companies, to be the premier driver in the workforce market revolution or evolution, depending on how you see it.
No, I think it's a good point. I think sort of both of these terms are valid, and I think that also you bring up the idea of the project economy as well, and you know, this is almost kind of a project basis with a clear sort of beginning, middle and end. Also speeds up the opportunity to be able to evaluate the work that you're doing and the skills that you got. So instead of the kind of the annual performance review, which was kind of old corporate practice, it's kind of getting that feedback and learning from project to project and using those new skills, that feedback, to be able to get better, to improve. That is also something that can be utilized for the workers and freelancers.
Definitely. And I think it fosters a sort of a growth mindset where you see, again, when you start seeing it in projects, there's always a sort of a beginning and an end where you can also see what, like, learn from the mistakes and build upon that, instead of sort of, because what often happens if you're in a big organization, there's politics. But if you're only in a project together, there's not room for politics in that same manner. I'm not saying politics will go away. They'll always be there. but it's more focused on results here and now, because there's a definite beginning and a definite end, and that sort of helps everyone focus on the same direction, in the same direction, I would say.
Absolutely, and it's I think this is something that is really sort of facilitating the world of work, and particularly in sort of countries that don't have this sort of self-employment status from the beginning, but also more freelancers and even companies realizing that sort of using services like yours will actually take away a lot of the pain and headaches that potentially could be viewed with employing or taking on board freelancers within the organization.
Yes, and I mean, there's always been this old doctrine of money is or capital is fluid; it can move anywhere, while workforce is always stable; it can't move. Like it's sort of locked in, whether it's national borders, regional borders, etc. But as we're moving again towards digital, workforce is becoming much more of a sort of an open source availability for companies. You don't have to settle for the sort of the workforce that is available at your location. You can sort of spread out, and which is happening more and more. It's offshore to Ukraine, or it's actually what we can see now with IR35 is that there's actually British contractors working for Swedish companies, for example. Which probably before Brexit and IR35 was quite uncommon, but it's now it's interesting how sort of tables have turned. Right.
That's really interesting point. And looking along into sort of this trends that are happening, as well as we're at the sort of the start of the year, what's coming up for Cool Company, and what is the plan and the focus for the rest of this year?
Well, first of all, we strongly believe that this sort of open sort of project economy is going to continue to bloom and grow. So we're constantly trying to continue to improve our own product and our service, but more importantly, other venues in order to sort of how people can actually also find work. We have obviously our own 2 platforms, Top Skills and Gigway, where we help people within creative, within tech, within business, to find these projects that we're talking about. So there's a clear sort of way of how to actually find it and where to, both from a freelancer perspective, but also from a company perspective. So our ambition is to more or less create an Upwork for the Nordics, trying to match the top skills and the competence with the right companies. And of course, as I mentioned, working with the global workforce rather than local or regional requires that we obviously update our services too. So that's something we're working with as well. And I'll be more than happy to come back to you when I have something more substantial to show up.
Yeah, well, it'll be always welcome to be able to come on and explain what's happening and the evolution in the marketplace. And I think you're onto a very good thing there. So most people from the recruiting side, or the individuals going through this traditional recruitment, is pretty useless in most fields anyway. So the way in which you can sort of use the digital matching services as well to get companies and talent together, I think really onto a very, very strong thing there as well, and disrupting that sector, which needs a rocket or two. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. Really welcome to come back and update us on the progress, Rickard.
Yeah, I'm more than happy. And speaking from experience, my own team are based in Toronto, Prague, Athens, Manchester, and Stockholm. So and that's just how things are right now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's good to live and breathe it and not just talk about it and realize how the setup works, Rickard. But this is absolutely fantastic, and I really appreciate you spending the time today, and look forward to hearing more.
Well, look forward to come back.